Stand by. The vacuum tubes are warming up. This is a special live broadcast right here on Georgia Radio.
We're continuing our conversation with local Georgia authors. We're talking down at Deidre and deLaughter, who joins us from her home in Atlanta. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you here.
Well, hello.
You know, your first book, Reawakening Rebecca, big success for you from what I understand, and we'll get into that. But you've written a new book, A Rose in Little Five Points, which a lot of folks who drive around Atlanta will know, the Little Five Points neighborhood. And this one took place back in the 70s throughout the 90s. I want to get into this because it's a great story, and it's one that just came out. How can folks find it?
It is available on Amazon. It is also available through Barnes & Noble and Target, although those may need to be ordered online. And if people want to contact me through my website, which is Clamor Girls, ClamorGirls.com, they can email and I'll send a signed copy. And
that harkens back to the first book, Reawakening Rebecca, the gift of the Clamor Girls. Talk to me about that story, because that's a story that a lot of folks might remember you from.
Yeah, so the Clamor Girls is a support group of 6 women who were sexually abused as children, and now they are adults and working through with their therapist the outcomes of how that abuse presents itself throughout their lives, but especially as adult women. And so the clamor comes from the first initial of each of their names, but also as they realize that they have all their lives been clamoring for attention, sort of screaming out in their lives for somebody to notice something was wrong.
Well, and there's some personal sides to this story too. Would you mind sharing those here?
Not at all. So I actually wrote this not necessarily on a dare, but as a challenge from a dear friend of mine who was a published author of many, many books. And he said, you need to write about this. And what this was I was married for 17 and a half years to a man who was a sexual predator, and I did not know that. And after our divorce, it came to light that he had sexually abused children in our home and in other places. And so this was sort of my way of processing what all that meant to me and to my daughters and to the people that he had misused their trust, the families that he had been involved with through the church, etc.
That's an awful lot to take in for anyone. And then did you find the writing process to be therapeutic, or was it a release that you didn't know was even available before you started the process?
It was therapeutic, especially because it's fiction. So I'm not pulling on any personal details of anybody that I knew or anybody that he abused. But it is a subject that we don't talk about very much, and it's not going away if we don't talk about it. And one of the themes in that book is that we are as sick as our secrets, and there is no need for somebody who has been abused to feel shame, but that shame usually keeps them silent. So it's kind of my way of pulling the veil off of that shame and allowing people to think about and talk about a subject that needs to be addressed.
And of course, the book has been out now for a little while.
Yeah, about 10 years. And I was commissioned to write a stage play version of it. Columbus State University in Columbus, Georgia performed it. And the Athens Creative Theater here where I live performed it. So
you touched on a good note. You said, I didn't draw from anything, any of my husband's victims. And I think that's so critical in a work like this. And that's one of the things you don't think about right off the top when you hear something from, this category and this magnitude.
Mm-hmm.
you fall into an interesting category from just looking at this 50,000 feet above it. How do you categorize yourself in this? Would you fall into the victim category socially, or is there always that looming question? Are you sure she didn't know? I mean, that's an interesting dynamic to this story. How do you handle that, Deidre?
I would categorize myself as a survivor and a thriver, and in part because I did the work that is required to deal with something of that magnitude. Not talking about it doesn't make it go away, doesn't make it any more tolerable. But again, shining light on something that will help other people realize that they didn't do anything wrong, that someone did something wrong to them, is so critical. Did that answer your question?
No, it did. And, that's not the first time as soon as you said that, I thought of my friend April, who has been on another show of mine, another radio show of mine, and talked about this. She said, don't ever classify me as a victim. I'm a survivor in this and dealt with a horrible string of violence in her life. And that is bang on and a great description of it. In the book, of course, Reawakening, Rebecca, The Gift of the Clamor Girls is out right now. How does A Rose and Little 5 Points relate to this, or does it relate to it at all?
It does not relate to it at all. It's just a totally different story with a different protagonist. But I guess if there is a theme in everything that I write, it is that most of our journeys of self-discovery are rather unintentional. We are bumping along in life on a foundation that we think that is best for us, and then it develops cracks, and we have to deal with it. So A Rose and Little 5 Points follows the journey of Meredith, who just wants to be a wife and a mother, and she and her husband and daughter have settled into the Little 5 Points neighborhood in Atlanta. And her intuition tells her all along the way that something's not right, but she ignores it until she can't ignore it anymore. And so her journey of self-discovery is how she deals with those cracks in the foundation.
Profound stuff. You don't write about anything that's just easy to read. I mean, this is
Well, life isn't always easy. Right?
No, it's not. I mean, I love that you just put this stuff out there and write about it. Is this in your nature? Yeah, you mentioned your daughter. Is this exactly as she would describe you? Well, you just don't know mom until has it always been this way with you?
I think I've always sort of been a truth teller. I don't shy away from calling things what they are. And it was that way with my daughters when I was raising them. I didn't try to protect them from the truth. I just felt like it was a disservice to them to lie about things. So consequently, they too have done their work and are very well developed, solid human beings that put out good stuff in the world instead of putting pain out into the world.
Well said. Well, when you're not writing, it says here that you enjoy doing word puzzles, taking long walks, Pilates, and listening to NPR, which is great. I hope at some point we have enough on Georgia radio to draw you over too. But I get the attraction there. What does all of this mean for you as far as the writing goes? And I'm curious about this because I've asked nearly every one of these fine writers who've been on with us in the last month that we've been doing this, what the Atlanta Writers Club means to them, because I'm curious if this has been a deep well for you as it has for so many others.
Well, writing is a lonely business. So anytime you can connect with other people who get it, that it is a very solitary thing. So to be able to share your frustrations and your joys with other people and use that as a platform to attract other people and to help them through the process is just such a valuable thing, and I cannot speak highly enough of the folks at the Atlanta Writers Club.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great resource, and if folks want to get involved in it, what's your advice?
Look them up on the internet. Even if you can't attend meetings, there are multiple resources in the monthly newsletter, from workshops you can attend virtually to their two main conferences each year to just resources. The writing and publication business is so fluid right now. It is hard to keep up with what is trending, and Atlanta Writers Club keeps up with what is trending.
Yeah, and you'll hear stuff. I mean, we've all been there. As a writer myself, you hear stuff all the time that it may or may not be true. It may be good advice. It might not be. But the great thing about having a guild or a club like the Atlanta Writers Club or the Carrollton Writers Guild that I'm a part of, the best part of this is that you're hearing from others who are in the trenches right now. Mm-hmm. And whether it's songwriting, whether it's screenplay writing, no matter what it is, if you can get involved in a group of folks that are out there doing it, odds are the advice is a lot better. And the Atlanta Writers Club, I mean, there's no better group that I'm aware of within the state of Georgia that's doing as much and that is, as active as they are. So,
agreed.
Yeah, great stuff there. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing about this last question, because I know there's always that nagging story. You've finished A Rose and Little 5 Points. It's out. What are you working on now, Deidre?
I am working on sort of a triptych of 3 short stories that are woven together by the theme of belonging. Who gets to say who belongs where and when? So there's one story about immigration, one story about a child who, let me back up. So in 2015, there was a couple who were killed in a terrorist raid, and they had a 6-month-old daughter. And I always wondered, well, who raised her after those parents were killed in that raid? So it's kind of her story, then the story of immigration, and then a story of homelessness. And again, the theme running through all those is who gets to say who belongs where and how and when. So that's what I'm working on.
No puppy dogs and baby kittens not coming out of there.
If you want brain candy, you got to look somewhere else.
That's right. Deidre's going to give it to you straight and raw. I mean, I can only imagine the stories that you get when you're at a book signing or when you're at an event and people come up to your table. And you just lay it out there because I'm sure it comes up. I mean, it says even in your in the pre-read there that this is based in fiction. The first book, Reawakening Rebecca, but it's sadly based on reality. I mean, when they make that connection, I'm sure there's been a lot of great stories. Maybe even some healing is where I was going to go with that. That's come from that, from others, hearing your story. Have you seen that?
Oh, yeah. And especially after the play was produced, we had a book signing in the lobby after the play. And oh, my goodness, just, the lives. For somebody to know that other people out there get it and it's okay to talk about it, it's not your fault. Oh, that's so meaningful.
Yeah. And not just for you, but probably for them as well, for those that might have a similar story or that have shared it.
Right. Yeah.
Well, it's all available right now. You can go out there and read it for yourself if you'd like to. Give them your website one more time, Deidre.
Yeah. So it's clamorgirls.com, and Clamor Girls is spelled CLAMORGIRLS.com.
Well, Deidre, thank you for coming on today. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Georgia Radio, on your phone, in your home, everywhere you go.